Hallo. Yep. Yes, Tony. Cool. 8 met jou erbij.
Dan doen we wel 5 minuten. Voordat het aangesloten is en...
Ja, gaan we doen. Okay, everybody. Wat zeg je? Wat doet het niet? Well, we checked the last system. Dat is de 2, Koen. The number 1 should be okay. Yeah. It's just the clip-on that's not working. Because we only have the handheld mic, because it would be too much time. My next speaker for a lightning talk, and the first lightning talk of the day, is Tony Yates from VIX Agency.
Hello, thank you. Hello back home. They're all watching, the team from the pub, so just want to say hi. Yeah, this is called chopping the head off Wagtail and sticking it back on, or something along those lines, which always makes me feel uncomfortable because I always think this little bird, whereas if it were like Ghost or something, it doesn't feel as bad ripping a ghost's head off. So yeah, basically yesterday we're just talking about headless CMSs, and one of the things that the NHS did is kind of started with a head and no body, ended up choosing Wagtail as the body and then having to stick the head back on, which is quite a strange way of doing things, but I just kind of wanted to explain why that happened, and hopefully people can potentially take something from that. So they started with a minimum viable product, which is to understand how people in healthcare are going to use content. You really need to think about content in a different way in healthcare. Tom talked a little bit about it earlier, but things like having really action-focused content, making it really apparent what you need to do in what circumstances when things are really critical with your health is massively important. So yeah, they started with HTML, and then they got content designers in the team, and the content designers were taught how to use GitHub, and then ended up loving it, and then we were doing Markdown, and you know, an application ended up being born, which was basically the head, and that was being rendered, serving content, beta content, alpha content, sorry, for the health service. And then obviously we looked at the scale problem, how we're going to take these concepts now and turn this into a website that's the largest healthcare website in the world. And obviously we looked at CMSs, and I was instrumental in picking Wagtail and making that decision, which is a good decision. And then the effort and all the emphasis were in the case, we're all focusing on how do we get this markdown content from GitHub into Wagtail, and the kind of editors had almost gone a little bit native, where they didn't want to lose GitHub and Markdown because they knew these skills now, and you know, these were content ninjas. So a bit like the Word problem, it became a GitHub and Markdown problem. So one of the things when you finish an alpha in the UK where it's government funded, you have to be willing to throw the whole thing away, get rid of any assumptions, and this is really hard. You know, trying to get developers who have worked tirelessly on creating this alpha product that's meeting users' needs to throw something away is very, very difficult. But you know, again, we made that decision and looked at Wagtail, and you know, that was selected. So it were about using the templating engine and rendering everything from Wagtail and serving it up by a CDN. And the main reason for doing that is when you have technology in healthcare and government, obviously, I mean, this is the same in any industry, but breaches are quite significant if we get a security breach or whatever. And having different content teams solving different problems, such as conditions and symptoms and managing your health, all creating their own bespoke rendering engines, that's got a lot of governance associated with it, going through testing, justifying your decisions through internal procedures is also a difficult thing. So yeah, the kind of decision taken there is to start with Wagtail until the point where you've got a need to not use Wagtail, and at that point that's when we should deviate and do something different, which will happen. I can see some use cases now where that's going to happen. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But it doesn't mean Wagtail doesn't work in a headless mode. It's fantastic, and we use it for other products that we've built, in particular rendering things on mobile native applications and things. So it's wonderful in that setting as well. So I don't want to discourage anybody from it. So just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully someone might take something from it. That's it. Thank you.
There's always time for a short question, if anyone has one. Okay. Not. From the top of my head, the next speaker is Geert-Jan from UWKM. Do you care to explain what that stands for?
Yes. Well, this is Joey, I'm Geert-Jan, and UWKM stands for Uw website kan mooier, which means something in English like your website can look better. And we are from the era that we used to make websites in WordPress, Magento, Joomla's and all those kind of things, and we know it's all a lot of crap, but it did have some advantages in how you can edit and build your own page. And we spoke to Lars, and Lars said to us, well, if you want to have good stuff, you go to Python, and well, we started working with Wagtail and Oscar, and we were limited in building our own pages the way we wanted and the way our customers wanted. And that's why we decided to build an own editor on Wagtail, and that's what we're going to show. And Joe is going to show some things in a live environment. If we get a picture. Maybe Bertrand is getting happy of it a little bit. You put it on the desk. Almost. There we are. Okay, we made a page in a demo website. This is actually live on the internet, and we built our pages with stream fields because we think with stream fields you get the flexibility of building your own page. And but the interface was giving some troubles. They were mentioned before, and not just visual troubles we got, but we also got problems loading the page. It really got slow. If you use more stream fields, the editor became really slow. So we made our own editor. We call it Roadrunner. It's available for everybody who wants to use it, and this is the back end of it in Wagtail. So this page is entirely built with stream fields, and Joe is showing how it's built. If we add a new stream field, our first choice, what we always make, is that you choose between if you want to have it fully width or a boxed size, depending how you make your website. And you can choose the width of the columns you want to use, and you can make your own choice if you want the number of columns you want to use on different devices, as well as on mobile, on tablet, and desktop. You add a new stream field, and in the stream field, you're going too fast for me. In the stream field, you make a choice of all the available stream fields, and that's what it depends on the customer and depends on the project what kind of stream fields are available. But it's really the Wagtail way. You simply publish it, take a look at the preview, and you add your new string fields. You can drag and drop all those kind of things. You can copy them. So if we now, they've switched places, and this gives us more freedom, and mostly our customers more freedom in building their own pages. This is what we wanted to show.
Thank you. Quick questions? Just Koen? You're the first one I saw.
Is it a product I can install?
Is it a product you can install? I don't mean, probably. Yes.
He said probably?
We assume it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it on GitHub?
Yeah, actually, we think we suggested it to the core team to make it mainstream, and but it wasn't picked up yet. And basically, it was declined, but we decided to develop it further on. And so we want to have it mainstream, and maybe it's also in connection to what Bertrand told us. Maybe this is a part of the way Bertrand is looking at it.
Okay, lots of stuff to talk to these guys about, I think. Thank you a lot. Next up is Cody.
Hi. So I just wanted to share some things that I've learned during my time at Wagtail Space and during my time in the Netherlands, since I've had such a great time. So number one is that the Dutch diet consists of mainly beer and fried carbohydrates. Beer o'clock is at 3:30, and this is definitely something I'm going to be taking back home to Cape Town and implementing in the Cape Town office. Number two is that a lot of the Wagtail developers or contributors are very good at pool. This was displayed yesterday when we all kept getting the white ball in. Number three, and this is something that in my journey of trying to be a better developer, these are things that I like to jot down, but number three is something that in a conversation with Bertrand, an oxymoron that actually seemed quite interesting to me is that templates, even though they are usually the things that make websites look amazing, don't have to look amazing themselves. Often when they don't look good, it means that they are doing their job. So I thought that was quite an interesting oxymoron. And then number four is that what you feel as cold, other people don't feel as cold. I've been coming to the office every day with like 6 layers on, and there are people next to me that only have a t-shirt on. But it got me thinking about how a lot of things are relative. And it got me thinking about how what may be good for me as a coder is not necessarily the best thing for the end users. And I think a lot of people have spoken about what's good for the end user today. But it got me thinking about, in the last couple of months, I've been really focused on trying to refactor code and make it look better. I'm taking functions that were maybe 20 lines and making them 5 lines. But I've actually realized that if your 5-line piece of code hits the database 20 times, it's a lot worse than the 20-line function that only hit the database 2 times. And so what's cold for you is not cold for other people, is something that I've learned. And tying into that is that as a coder, I would like my loyalty to be with the end user's need and not the code itself. So the better I meet the end user's need, the better coder I am, and it's not always a case of how good I can refactor some code. And then the last thing is that the people here in the Netherlands and Arnhem, and specifically here at 4 Digits, have been incredibly welcoming, and I've had a really great time. So thank you very much.
Daniela.
Yeah, I apologize you have to see me again. Sorry, so soon. Yeah. Let's see if this. Here we are. So this is another thing not to mention to my friend Kade, because I don't want any more discussions with him about the habits of wagtails. I want to invite you to bring Wagtail in whatever form, whether you're a developer or a user of it, or have some connection with it, to a PyCon. And specifically, I would suggest as a starter PyCon Namibia that I've been involved in for the last 4 years. So I'll tell you very briefly a little bit about the last PyCon Namibia, which I came back from last month. So we had about 100, just under 100 attendees from lots of different parts of the world over 3 days. And one of the very remarkable things about this PyCon, everyone there is very young, because even the leaders of the Python community were only undergraduates when we first met them 4 years ago. And so, for example, there's Queen, who is one of the high school students of Jessica, who herself was an undergraduate when we met her, and she's now, there she is coaching in the Django Girls workshop. Here's another of Jessica's students, Berhane, who did a workshop that was so packed that there was standing room only on creating a really simple guessing game. And unfortunately, I missed it because I was giving my own talk, which was practically empty, because everybody was in Berhane's workshop, and everyone who went said it was devised and executed absolutely brilliantly, and it was aimed at people. You have to understand that many of the attendees there don't even have a computer that they can, just like Lisa was showing with the shared phones, it's much the same situation with people's computers. So I think he's 12 or 13 years old. Another one of Jessica's students, Godwin, doing a live demo of his little game in Pygame. Mate, one of the organizers, doing a session on Python in music. We have had many other African visitors at PyCon Namibia. So there's Candy, who came from Botswana. This was the first time there were people from Botswana there. Noah from Ghana, who's going to be organizing the first PyCon in Ghana later this year. Some of you may even know Marlene. She's the first African director of the Python Software Foundation, and she's from Zimbabwe. And it was a PyCon, in some ways very different from ones you might be used to, but in other ways extremely similar, with talks on all different kinds of subjects. There's this is a young Greek woman from Cardiff University doing a talk on data analysis on the Game of Thrones in IPython notebooks. And technical workshops like, oh, Anna, that was by Anna. She's one of the directors of the Django Software Foundation. So Africa's having more and more influence in these communities. And of course, meetings and spontaneous workshops at every opportunity, and lightning talks on every subject you can imagine. So that was just a tiny fraction of the queue that extended around the back of the room. The PyCons in Africa, so they started, of course, in 2012 in South Africa, and then Namibia was the 2015, and after that, really from the Namibian PyCon, people have come to that from other countries and then gone back and started their own. So Zimbabwe in 2016, Nigeria last year, it'll be Ghana this year, and there'll certainly be more where those came from. So why take the trouble to go all the way to an African PyCon with Wagtail? Well, one is that this is true everywhere, not just in Africa, but web content management is an ideal way into software development, because there's a really obvious problem that web content management solves. Most people and most businesses can think of reasons why they might want to have a website. So putting an open source web CMS into people's hands is an excellent way of getting them into programming and software development, and much better that they come in through a way like Wagtail than go in to pick up WordPress. Not because WordPress is bad, but I think that Python is a better basis for establishing a software industry and a sustainable software community. Another reason, the web means businesses, because it's businesses need websites. And one of the things that's very difficult, maybe not so much in South Africa, but definitely in other smaller African countries like Namibia, is that to become sustainable and to get really, for Python to get traction in the local developer community, it needs to have a business use and justification. You don't tend to find African hobbyists because, as Aisha from Nigeria, Aisha Bello, you may have met her, she said, Africans don't have hobbies, we don't have time for that. So hobbies are things that you have when you've got a luxury of time. Lisa was also talking about how you can improve your product to meet different people's needs, some of whom might be unfamiliar to you, and to meet those people, to give you different perspectives, sorry, to understand those people, to give you different perspectives, you have to go and meet them sometimes. Last one. And it gives you a chance to be a Pythonista and not a tourist, which is the best way to visit an African country. And if you can't make it to Africa, come to Cardiff instead. So 3 flights a day from Schiphol. Come to an African one, but if you can't, I'm the director of this year's PyCon UK. You'd be very welcome there to bring Wagtail with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. Next up is Michael van Tellingen.
Yes.
Zou je deze voor je vasthouden?
Nee. Everything is working. Okay, so the resolution is not good, but anyway. So I want to do a quick presentation about performance. So there is a lot of research done that says performance correlates to conversion rates, especially for e-commerce environments. And I personally always aim, okay, a page needs to load within 100, 125 milliseconds. Everything below 200 milliseconds is okay, but above is, yeah, I consider it not good. So this is a screenshot of a ping time between 2 availability zones in AWS. So if your application runs within AWS, and you have an, the application runs in availability zone B, but your RDS is in A, then you have 1 millisecond of round trip time per query. So that actually means that communication between databases and applications is not negligible. So every query you do has an overhead of 1 millisecond. So if you do 100 queries, then you already have 75 milliseconds of overhead. So if we aim for 125 milliseconds of performance, yeah, we already lost more than 50% on basically nothing, actually. And this is also excluding overhead in the application layer. So every query you do in Django, it needs to be translated to raw SQL and then to Psycho PG2 or something else. So yeah, those are real issues. N+1 queries are real problems. And yeah, how does that impact Wagtail? So Wagtail, Django already has solutions for that, like select related, prefetch related. But for Wagtail, you have stream fields, which is basically a JSON dump of all blocks within that. So when a model is loaded with a stream field in it, the complete JSON is deserialized to native Python structures. And each block you use will be called to Python, a function to translate the JSON to a native Python structure. So if we take a menu, a footer item, which can be a stream field, of course, then you have here, you see 17 pages actually, which is then, every page is a primary key to a model in Django. So it's relatively simple. But this is already 17 queries, so we already have 15 milliseconds of overhead, because every block does a call to the backend. every block says, hey, give me the page for this primary key, and that's 17 times. So if you have a menu with 100 items, then you already lose a lot. So in Wagtail 1.6, we introduced some optimizations which solve the issue with when you have a complete list block within pages. And that works great. Except if your clients require something else. They say, okay, you need to link in the footer to an internal page, which you use a page user block for, or an external link. So you have an additional abstraction. So you see the JSON there is the sub-items is nested block with possibilities, with page or either an internal or external link of a document. So how can we solve this? Well, it's pretty easy actually. We just analyze the JSON before we start loading all the data from the database. So if we collect all the primary keys we require, then we can just say to the database, give me all the pages with these primary keys. And then the toPython block needs to have an additional cache added. So I did the implementation myself there. Everyone can visit it. Basically, this replaces the struct block natively in Wagtail with a cached struct block. And it can reduce your query count for complex stream fields from like 90 queries, 80 queries to just one query. So it will be cool to get this as a pull request. That's it. Thanks. Thank you.
Any questions on that? Yes, Lars.
How did you select the name for the repository?
I don't have a repository.
No name for the repository. Thank you, Michael. Rajiv.
Hi, I'm Rajiv from India, and first of all, I'd like to thank 4Digits for their amazing generosity and their coffee, which is in here now. So I started with Wagtail maybe a couple of months ago, just experimenting with it, and we landed a couple of projects for Wagtail, which we intend to use with Wagtail. And one of those projects is a real estate website, and they are migrating from WordPress. So one of the requirements was they have a listing of homes, and each home has got about 10 to 15 photographs. Manually migrating this would be really, really hard because you have to attach each image separately. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to allow drag and drop of images in the model admin. So for that, I made an addition to the bakery demo so that you can list out curries, and each curry can have different images. So you can see here there are different images. And what I implemented was this. You can just drag your images in here, it uploads, and there you go. So let me just tell you about my experience developing this. This was actually, I was told that it's quite complex to get this accomplished, and it happened only because of the great support I got from the developers on Wagtail, and also because of the flexibility of the code that's in Wagtail itself. I was able to get up and running with a development version of Wagtail 2 in about half an hour on the first day of the sprint. And I spent the next couple of days developing this prototype. And I was able to make one small significant contribution. I mean, even if this is not accepted into Wagtail, there is one contribution that has been approved, and that is this one, add request to edit handler. So this was my first pull request, and I think Bertrand approved this during his talk. So, that's how we are your Kickstarter project is going to go as well. It's a very small patch to Wagtail, and what it will help panel authors future to do is, for example, allow per field permissions. Like if you want to have users not be able to edit a single field in a model, you'll be able to do that. So this thankfully has been approved, and this is my second PR, which is still being reviewed. So I invite anyone who's new to Wagtail like me. I mean, I just started with the code like 3 days ago. It's a very welcoming team. You can very easily get started with it, and you definitely, from the interaction that I had with Wagtail developers, they're very welcoming, and they are accepting of the problems that are there in your code. And the second thing I'd like to note is just adding to what Bertrand said in his talk. There is something more valuable than money, and that is time. And you need a lot of time for your families, but also to do the big things in your life, like contribute to Wagtail or things like that, right? And as a person who runs a company, we have got 22 developers. And the reason that we have 22 people in our company is because you make time by sharing your work with others. Sharing, if you have the vision and you have the strength, you can lead people and you can make them work. They get something from that in terms of finance, but also you get time and they get time. So that's one way of making time, and there's no way, nobody can contribute time to you. They can't take your time. They can give you money, but they can't give you time. So, use that. Use the commercial companies who are there in the Wagtail community. And I'd like to join that as well. And we'll be able to give you more time to work on things that you love, whether it's Wagtail or whether it is to be with your families or to do other things in your community. And that's it. Thank you.
Any questions about that marvelous talk and the code that you wrote? Really cool. But anyone else wants to say how cool it is? Or okay. Very cool. Okay, we're down to the last two talks. The second to last one is the demonstration from the Easter egg team, Haunted Wagtail. And after that, Maarten is going to make an announcement. I don't think I've forgotten anyone, have I? No one is. No, I wasn't going to do. He's going to speak for me, I guess. Okay. Yeah, okay. If someone could turn off the master volume real quick to prevent... stick it in real quick. Waar moet hij in? Waar gaat deze in? Oh, could we borrow the USB-C to HDMI converter that was just around here? Ah, cool. Hero. Oh.
Thanks.
No mirror, please. Maybe this works on mirroring.
Before we start, I like to send out an official warning that this is going to contain very disturbing imagery. So people who are really easily scared should leave. Or we have 2 pillows. Yes? Please pass the pillow. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So, indeed, tissues. There you go. Yeah, so we had a project that was going to introduce an Easter egg into Wagtail. And we worked on it for 3 days, and we like to demo. So this is the regular Wagtail Bakery demo site. And if you're just a user, you're going to refresh first, because that's always safe to do. And then if we're going to search, maybe we want to search for something extremely evil. Yeah. So that scared you, right? Yeah. So we can also go to a different page after we refresh. Maybe once more to be sure. You never know. Yeah. Let's try it again. Right. Everybody's still here. Oh my God. Going well. So this is an a package you can install. It's a Python egg. You have to install a middleware, which will, just like a proper Trojan or virus, will insert JavaScript in every request you make, enabling this wonderful software. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks. There was a question for the location of this beautiful software. Haunted minus Wagtail on GitHub. Okay, last speaker, Maarten. Heb je deze nodig of alleen die?
Als die niet weer ontploft.
Dankjewel.
Hallo. Oeh. Yay, it's a wrap. Yeah, I would like to thank you all for the fun, and I hope you had fun. I know my team did, so for these guys a wave. So if you still don't know them, then I don't know what you did these days. Yeah, I have 3 slides. This is the first one, and then the second one is 2019. Do we want one more? Okay, we already picked the date, so book your flights again and come back. We can fit 60 more, probably, and if not, we'll go one building bigger. And yeah, we don't care. Yeah, it was fun, and let's party. Don't go home yet. Drink the beer, and see you next year.